Cosmo, you just made it, mate. Well done. I've got a little target following my face. That's all good, though. You have to turn that off.
That's like it's autofocus.
I know, right? How good is that?
No? Whoa.
That's cool. That's better. It'd be good to lose that film. Yeah, not that. Oh, we can turn back. They still got the hand. That hasn't killed the. There must be a autofocus button on the camera, right? Somewhere else on that side, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really, we're happy.
Go. Looks good.
Yes, they have.
Oh, that's a bigger one. Try that one. That's a big square one.
And then that's the tracking.
Can we go to none?
That's a question for.
Good to see you.
That's autofocus.
Become like a guest. This is good to have
Yeah, I don't know how
Let's go to the big wide one.
the big wide thing.
That's not quite as hot footed. And then
Yeah.
we'll get Fermi to look at it.
It's only
That one we
convenient
do.
for
Yeah.
me to leave the house.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Half of the time, he
Okay.
guys talking, so I would have responded the same thing again.
Especially like maybe this side.
Yes, if someone is not having loud voice, we can't. Definitely be a cost more.
Okay, we need to get started. It's 9:03 and we needed those 3 minutes. Because I have a note at the top of this week's lecture that says this hot one took 2 hours. So we're going to have to fly. First question, how are we going with our journals? Now, I already happen to know that Narelle is doing well in her journal in her head. But may not have written it down yet. Caroline, have you remembered you're supposed to be making a journal?
I'm just making around.
You want to remember what's the point of your journal? You've got to write down some times when you had to make ethical decisions and what was the to and for and against and what did you decide and how did you decide, that sort of thing. You need to have one a week.
Oh,
So-
that's all right then.
So you want to have a good selection to choose from. I was thinking about that and thinking it's actually sometimes a little bit tricky to come up with something every week when you actually had to make an ethical choice. I think you're going to sort of things that you almost do instinctively or automatically. You're going to remember what the ethical choice is behind it and just pull something out. But definitely be alert and aware. You know, if there's someone who's left their money behind. I had an ethical challenge. This was actually quite a good one. I was at Aldi and I bought these waters, like 2 things of 24 each, so it's like
Big ones, yeah.
yeah. And I'd just gone through that person before me in the counter. The guy had just put my thing through, and I was just paying, and then he realised that the lady who'd gone through before me had left her cat food behind, like tin of cat food, and I'm like, run after her, give it to her, take it here, get her, give it, carry water, can't run, right? And I was stuck there thinking, how can I get this help? And she's like, oh, she'll come back. He didn't care. He can't leave his check out. I can't run, so I'm carrying water, and I can't leave that behind. And so she went home with no food for her cat, which was a bit sad. So that would be an interesting one to write about. Whether should I have dumped my water and run after her and got her back, or what? I don't know. That was all interesting. But those sort of things, that's all you need. That's perfectly adequate to write about. Good morning, Tabby. Good to see you early today. You're doing good. You're improving every week. That's good. Let's get right into today. We're talking about church and government, Christians and the government. Okay, this is a big topic for 21st centuries. We've got to cover some history. We've got to cover some theory. From now on in ethics, we're not really going to talk so much about ethical theory as practical application in 21st century. So we're going to cover a whole lot of different subjects. As you know, ethics is all about what's right and what's wrong. Okay, and now we're specifically going to talk about how do we engage what I think is right and wrong with what other people think. And what about the government? Where does the government fit in with what we think is right and wrong? So let's start with a little discussion. Who knows someone that disagrees with you about something to do with what's right and what's wrong? Do you know someone that you know that you and them see differently about maybe what is right and what's wrong on some issue, something?
Political parties.
What's that?
Political parties.
So you have different preference on political parties? Okay, who is this person?
Probably like some of their, baseline things
Yeah.
that they value might be different to us.
To what you? Okay, I mean you personally. Tell me one of your friends or one of your family members where you know you and them disagree on something. That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
I say my husband.
Yeah.
And just yesterday, about our political beliefs at home. So he believes, okay, we have a politician who's very corrupt, but he believes he's much better than the rest. So we usually argue because I tell him, if he's corrupt, but he says like it's better to choose a much better corrupt than the
Is that a really worse corrupt
Yeah,
one?
so
Yes.
just
Okay.
go
Yes.
back and forth.
So how? Okay. So you. It doesn't really affect you because you're not there. Is it a theoretical conversation or
Yeah,
do you?
theoretical conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
My son and I do. I can't
Yeah.
think of anything currently, but yeah, there are moments that we'll both have a disagreement on a subject.
Which son?
Which one?
Yeah.
Liam.
Them. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And so you end up. Okay. Most of the time it's a theoretical conversation because it doesn't affect you right now.
No.
Unless it's like maybe what's the right way to respond to a child that needs to be trained or disciplined or something. Often parents can have a disagreement on that, and that has to be solved right now because we're going to do it right now. That's probably one that we're probably quite used to. We want to look at this case study. We're going to do. We've got 5 people. There's 4 people. 3. Okay, so here's the case study. Let's get in groups of 1 or 2. Actually, I'll get in a group with 1 person, right? That'll work.
I don't think you can call it a group of one.
A group of 1 or 2, right? Okay. But the case study is, it's about stem cell research. Who knows what stem cell research is? Yes. Okay, what's the controversy about stem cell research?
Like they need to kill the embryos so that they
So you're killing an embryo to get a stem cell to do scientific research on it. Yes, that's the controversy. Okay. After years of campaigning, this is a hypothetical situation, but it's not far from reality. By minority groups and scientists for use of embryos in stem cell research, the current Labor government is going to make it legal. Countless scientific discoveries and therapies in other countries that have made it legal have weighed into the decision, along with philosophical arguments for the low value of non-person human embryos. Christians who are still a minority in Australia are united against this decision, but have not been able to present compelling arguments. Individual Christians are expected to follow their beliefs and not donate embryos for research. 3 Christians are affected. One is John Smith, who's a Labor MP for Blacktown, who's a Christian, and he thinks it's wrong. Okay, and Philomena and Caroline, you can read his one and talk about what is he going to do. Tell us what you reckon he should do. The second one, Narelle and Cosmo, Honourable High Court Judge Mary Collins, who's an elder at the ACC Church, on the board of ACC Church. She's presiding over a case where the grandparents are trying to stop the parents from donating spare embryos for research. Okay, and Daniel Griffiths is a marketing design consultant who's being asked to market IVF so they can have more embryos to sell to research companies. Okay, I'll do that with Tammy. So read about your person's situation, 2 or 3 minutes, talk about what do you think they should do? Okay, how should they, what are the things they have to deal with? What's the decision they have to make? What's the factors that are influencing them? We'll come back at 10, 12. 9, 12. 9 and 13. It's just 9, 11. 9, 12.
Wow, that's
Daniel Griffiths, a Christian for Sydney marketing team. He's asked in fun graphics. So I can get them to. They have contracts with things like research. Yep. Hey, Jeremy. So what do you reckon? What should he do? What's his sponsor? He needs the job, right? Yes. Yes. So what do you think you should do? If it was you, what are you going to do? Jeremy, you want to... Yep, good idea. And your boss is nice, well. So, Jeremy, we've got a problem. Stem cell research is about to become legal, and you're a Christian graphic design person who has been asked to do a promoting campaign, promoting IVF, which will therefore provide your company, your client company, with embryos to supply for research.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do because you've been asked to do that graphic design. Yeah.
The only ground. You could roll
Get someone else. I would recommend someone else.
Yeah.
Probably try and find another job.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
So you need another contract or you do the same company or click and go from there. Awesome.
or so I'm assuming that
Are we ready? Okay. We ready? Let's do it. Okay. Okay, we've got John Smith, Labor MP for Blacktown. His party has decided that they're pushing this through and you have to vote with the party. John Smith, his electorate also are highly supportive of it. What is John Smith going to do? Because he's Christian, he's opposed to it.
So there are two approaches. So
Yeah.
one like the utilitarian approach and the ontological. So
Yeah.
in the things of the people benefiting of this party,
Yeah.
and the people to be affected, then you'll have to go utilitarian way basis for all. But also,
So what should we do? Which one?
Utilitarian
Yeah.
ethics because it's strong support from the general population. So
Yeah.
as a party member, he's representing the population in his area.
So the voters say he should support it?
Yeah, supported, and the party he's standing for, the value of the party, the Labour Party, they are agreeing with it.
Okay.
So it benefits them. So if he's going with the utilitarian, he might agree with that statement.
Yep.
But the versus the contradictory to that is the virtue ethics,
Yeah.
where his value and his beliefs comes in as a Christian.
Yeah.
So
Personal integrity, yeah.
yeah,
integrity,
also obeying God.
Yeah.
So deontological ethics are going to say what?
Yeah,
That it's bad, and so we should oppose it?
yeah.
Okay.
And if he's going to choose like maybe his personal virtues and believe in God, then he might have to oppose it and be ready, maybe
be
then
ready
step
to
down.
move the party
Yeah.
if he thinks that party is not.
So what happens if he opposes it?
He might have to step down.
He'd have to resign,
Yeah,
right?
because the party is not in
Yeah.
line with his beliefs as what he thinks about.
Okay, yeah. So if it was you, which way are you going to go?
Virtues.
So you would, because of your personal integrity, you'd say this is a bottom line. You can't cross this line. I'm never going to support this, regardless of the people that voted for me. Okay, so you step down from Parliament completely, retire from all Parliament.
Will you shift to a group?
A different party maybe.
Yeah.
Okay,
Which are
okay.
the
So for personal integrity, you're going to become an independent. Okay, all the people in your electorate that voted for you, you're not representing them. You're supposed to be their voice in Parliament, right? And you're not representing them, you're representing yourself. Right? Yeah.
Theological ethics isn't his duty to the people who voted for him.
So that's the problem. Theological ethics says, God says oppose it, but the party, you've got to obey your leaders, right?
Yeah.
Submit to authority, your party says support it.
Yeah.
So straight away, deontological ethics is really in trouble.
Yeah.
Because it's got two, you've got to obey the party, you've got to support the voters, and good deal, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you could, as you say, you could argue it either way. Some people would say, on some issues, I'm never going to cross this line. This is one of those things where my personal, I'm just going to bail, I can't, in good faith, represent the voters or the party,
Yeah.
okay? And so I'm going to have to make a break and either retire from politics or something. Yep.
Yeah.
Good, okay. And you guys would have quit. This is what you would have chosen.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys in the middle, you guys are Mary Collins, the judge. There's a court case coming up, and the couple want to donate the embryos, and their parents say that's our grandchildren, and you're killing them for science. We oppose it, and they're at court right now. And you're the judge. What are you going to do?
We also missed the fact that this court case is after the new law.
The law's been passed. That's right. The law has been passed.
That was the first case.
It's the first case after the law's been passed. What are you going to do?
She's in a conflict
Conflict of interest.
of interest because of her faith.
That's the whole point of ethics, right? Conflict.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she would be able to swap, pass it on to another high court judge because her interests are too conflicting that it won't give a good enough result for this first case.
Okay.
No matter what
So you're
evidence-
saying dodge the whole thing?
No, I'm saying pass it on to somebody who
Just
it
report
won't.
the cases of it.
Give it to someone else who doesn't care. Okay. So
She could do that, or then she could, in the position, stand for life, and then she could be judged as favouring one side over the other.
So what's her? So yes. Okay. So what's the problem? What's her job as a judge is quite clear, right?
Yeah, we go by law.
So to uphold the law.
Yeah.
So theoretically, it's a simple thing. Whether you agree with the law or not, you're supposed to uphold it. It's quite simple. What's her problem?
Her faith.
Her faith, and hold on a minute, her church, right?
Yeah.
What is her church going to think of her? She's on our board, and she just said that it's okay for people to give their baby embryos, away to scientific research. Okay. Her main problem probably is her and her husband board members of the church. How's her church going to handle the fact that she permitted that to happen? Okay. Knowing that whatever she decides is going to affect hundreds of thousands years to come because she's setting the precedent, first one to decide.
Yeah.
Okay. On the other hand, I could bail and say, not me, I don't want to get involved. So, and then someone else is going to come along and maybe give a worse decision. That could be worse for the country than the decision that you make. So,
Can't she get a step down from being a church board member?
so she could resign from the church board so that the church would not come into conflict. She could say, obviously this is going to affect the pastor in the church, so that would be a smart thing to do. Or resign from being a judge, right? And then, okay, if you were her, what are you going to do?
Because they say call it dual relationship if you are in a board and
Dual relationships, tricky, right? Yes. So if you were her, what are you going to do?
Something that's unprecedented and totally go against what the law has put down.
So you could do a conscientious objection and say the government is wrong, we need to be looked at again, da 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 da. What will happen to you?
Your career's gone.
You're out. You're over, right? Unless you're out. Okay, what else could you do?
Dodge it.
What are you going to do? I thought you were going to dodge it, right? You're going to be sick that day. You're going to have a sick.
It's a choice of career or what your church. Like, she would have worked years for this career.
Surely you have come to power for such time as this. Right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, right? Okay. You can't just bail and pretend I'm not here today. Okay, what
So
can
I'll
you do?
go with the one, the unprecedented, where should go against the law.
You're gonna sacrifice what career?
You're
You're
just
gonna take a sickie?
Oh,
Tabby, what are you gonna do, Tabby?
You know what? I would. That's so hard. As a high court judge, I would do my job.
You do your job, and what would you bring to your job?
I would, in all honesty, like as a judge.
Yeah.
Your job is to be impartial,
Yes.
and I would try and be impartial, but I wouldn't dodge it just to dodge it. Like if
Yeah.
I found that I genuinely couldn't be impartial and
Yeah.
couldn't look at both sides, then I would step down. But I would judge it and try.
So you could sort of step back. Otherwise, you try and judge it. What's the one opportunity? What could you do as the judge? It's pretty well clear what you're going to have to call it, right? Because the law's pretty clear. What can you do as the judge? You can't. If you say no, it's not allowed to happen, they'll just appeal and say you've just conflict of interest. You haven't judged the law. Appeal, someone else will get it, and it'll be over. What can you do?
I guess you could like try and speak reason to people who are in
You could negotiate, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but someone else is going to do it tomorrow as well, right? The best thing, if I was the judge, right, because I'm not a judge, I don't fully get it, but what I can do is I can frame the decision with as narrow focus as possible and with as much caution as possible, right? Because the judge gives the verdict, but they also comment. And so I could easily say the law at this time requires me to judge in favour of this party, right? However, I bring that judgment with great concern because I realise the implications, and I request or appeal to the government to relook at this whole thing on these grounds. You could do something like that, and you could frame it in some way so that your precedent's not a wide open, come on, bring it on, but it's you have some option to say something. Okay, that's which is about the only thing a judge might reckon you can do. You're right, judge has got to do what judge has got to do. That's what they're for. Okay, next person was the graphic designer who's an IVF company want a new campaign. This is going to be money for us, okay? We're going to every week going to be able to donate, sell embryos for research. Big money. Let's promote IVF. Happy for me. What are you going to do? What are your options? What's your problem?
Ask to be.
Tabby wants to join as well. She wants to get off the project.
Project.
Yeah.
If not, then I would. Like, if I'm not allowed to, then I would let my employers know that this is something that I personally believe
Yeah.
in, that I can do this process in good faith, and hope that they give me a really great what's that word? Reference.
Yeah, I hope they give you a good reference.
Yeah.
She's a great designer, but don't ask her to do anything she doesn't like because she'll just bail. Okay, it's got a tricky call, right? Okay, what other? I just want to ask Tabby. Yeah.
Police go against.
What's that?
You said like she won't do anything she doesn't like. Then there is a difference between don't like and your
Yes,
belief.
yes. So I want to
Stand
ask
against.
Tabby, because I'm her boss, what other clients of ours aren't you going to work for? Okay, you're not going to work for the IVF company. What about the cigarette company? Are you going to work for them? What about the alcohol, the beer company? What about what are the other clients that are on your no list? What are the other clients that are on your no list?
I guess that also just comes down to that person who's in that position or that job who's not doing their research. Because if that's the kind of companies that person like that company works for, then like.
So you should have never got the job in the first place? Well, it was never a problem until the law changed, right? Okay, so that snuck up on you a little bit, but so every year. But now, what's the difference between the graphic designer and the judge? You can quit, and really not many people are affected, right? And you can quit. Someone else is going to do the job, so you're not going to change anything except you're not going to have a job anymore, but you're going to feel good in your life. Complicated, right? Okay, this is the good. This is when we're dealing with the greater world and the government and everything like that, we run into complicated things. And this is sort of what we're going to talk about. Generally outside of Centrepoint Church, ACC, outside of Christianity, there's an assumption that of a sacred secular split. What do I mean by that? Most people assume and live by the sacred secular split. What is that? I'm trying to cover about 3. Sacred secular split. Keep your religion at home, do your job at work, right? Okay? This is how most people expect you to live. Okay? Because you do your religion's your private thing, and here we're here to do a job. Okay? We just do the graphic design, no one cares, okay? You're not actually doing it. You're not the one. If you really what you believe about it, keep it yourself. We're here. And this is the assumption that most people have. How did we get to this assumption? Can anyone explain the history of how did we end up here? Okay, we'll do it really quickly again. Tell me the history of the United States of America. How did the United States become formed? How did it become the United States of America and not a colony of England? So we've got King of England telling everyone they have to be a Catholic. Okay, if you're a Protestant, you get burned at the stake, right? The King of England and the King of France and various monarchies are enforcing Catholic is the only religion on their nations. And if you're reading the Bible in English, becoming a Protestant believer who believes that salvation is by faith instead of by works, you get executed. Okay? So we escape to the free land and start a new world, a new way of living in a free country, right? And we go to war, this is another subject, another class, to fight off to break our ties with England and with Europe. So now we are all free. No one will tell us what we can believe. Okay, so we set up a government, right? Where the government is here, and the government's job is to provide freedom for the people. That's the whole point of American government, right? Provide freedom. So therefore, no one person tells you what you have to do for a job. No one person tells you where you have to live. No one tells you how you have to worship God. This is the whole point of American freedom. This is the whole point of democracy. That no longer does one person tell you what to do. You're free to make your own choices. Okay? And the only reason there's a government is to maintain the freedom. So if someone's running around and a gang, like a mafia gang, is going around telling you, no, you've got to, causing trouble, the government's job is to promote freedom by suppressing what they would call illegal activity, like by suppressing anything that takes away my freedom. So if there's violence, okay, coming against me, the government's supposed to maintain a peaceful place. If there's another country trying to invade us and take away our freedom, we've got to oppose communism, right? Because it takes away freedom. That's why America was the defense against communism, because communism takes away freedom and America opposes communism. Okay, America guarantees freedom. That's the whole thing. So when it comes to religion, the government's job, democracy, the government's job is to maintain an environment where everyone can be free to choose whatever they like. And that's the whole point of America. And this is where democracy came from. Let us choose whatever we like. So therefore, there's an assumption that the government doesn't care what religion you follow. Okay, it doesn't care. You can do whatever you like. So therefore, and from that flow on down effect, you can do whatever you like, but when you're working here and you work for the government, you can't bring your religious belief into your job. Okay? If I'm the government and I'm a Jewish person, right? I'm a Jewish person and I've become elected. Okay? I can't mandate Sabbath on everyone else. Right? Because that's bringing my religion, taking away their freedom. Okay? So this is the whole. So therefore, although I'm a Jew, right, or a Jewish person, and I'm working in the government. When I'm working in the government, my religion stops at the door, and I follow the freedom as my thing. That's the short story. Okay? So therefore, this is where we end up, the split between sacred and secular. And then in the business, the follow-on from that in Western society is in business and education, government runs education, so therefore government does not teach you religion, okay, because it's taking away freedom from the flow and effect. If I'm teaching you one religion over another, I'm taking away your freedom. But therefore the government, in business, right, it's just about economics, it's not to do with any religious belief. Bringing religion into it complicates everything. Okay, this is the short story of where democracy came from, and especially secular American democracy. Okay, which Australia is pretty closely modelled off. Okay, so therefore you keep your personal beliefs out of your public life. That's the short summary of where it all came from. Now, do Christians believe in keeping your beliefs, your personal faith beliefs out of public life? No?
Okay, and I also have a question because even to be like a president or just like Morrison is like our because he has his own beliefs and he's leading people with different beliefs. You know, like I'm sure there are times when there's so many people decisions he has to make because he has to go with what the law says and what the government says, and sometimes I'm afraid contradicts what he believes. So I don't know at that stage as a Christian what are you supposed to do?
What are you supposed to do? That's right. This is what this is all about.
Yeah, does it mean that?
So everyone's really happy that Scott Morrison is our Prime Minister, right?
Yeah.
Christians are like, yeah, how did he get there? He must have navigated his way through a lot of things where he wasn't quite sure about that, but he went supported in the party framework, right? He must have had a few John Smith decisions where he somehow managed to balance his personal beliefs with his commitment to the party and his commitment to the greater good of Australia, okay, and all that sort of thing. And it's a fine balancing act, and every person has to make the call. And one of those times when conscience is a big player, right? If you can't, with a peace in your heart, say yes to that, then that's when you bail out. And that's why not many Christians probably find themselves prospering in a government political environment because it's not exactly a friendly place for integrity and stuff like that. It's very tricky, right? Okay, so yes, good question.
So does it mean that God forgives you for something because you're a leader?
Okay, well, what does God expect from you as a leader? What does God expect from Scott Morrison? Does God expect Scott Morrison? Well, yeah, we'll come back. So we'll come back. Yes, we've got to come back because we want to get there slowly. So, do we keep our personal beliefs private, or do we live them out in the public?
We are supposed to be the light of the world.
We're supposed to be the light of the world. We can't as Christians be. If you're not a Christian at work, right, and you're not a Christian at the shops, you're not a Christian. Okay, so we don't have, and our understanding is you're who you are. Jesus' light shines out of you at church, at home, at work, everywhere. Okay, so therefore this makes this area problematic for Christians because we want to be here shining, right? We want to shine a light here, change the world, right, and because we're convinced that God's ways are right and will bless the whole country. Okay, that's fundamental thing we have. We want to bring that blessing to everybody. Okay, we know that blessing will be best if people live according to God's ways. That's our understanding. Okay, so that's a problem for us that we have to deal with over and over again. Okay, let's take a little bit more about. Here's two videos. The first one we won't watch for time. First one is Chuck Norris talking about how they teach using the Bible in schools in America to teach science and literature and a few other social studies, a few other subjects, okay? And yes, you can do that, donate money here. The next one is Martin Sheen, and he's talking about this story about where government came from and how George Washington and all the first presidents said, keep religion out of the government, otherwise you won't have freedom. Because, and then remember, the whole point of the Dark Ages, right, and the whole point of the trouble before democracy, whenever you had religion leading a country, you end up with persecution of anyone who disagrees, okay? Because religion's 100% or nothing, and if you disagree with me, then you are now of the devil, right? Just take off the Christian hat, put on your Islamic hat. Islamic country, known for persecution of anyone who's different, right? Okay? And so it's the same, history says Christian government is the same as Islamic government when it comes to people that oppose you. Okay? That's part of our problem again. Let's just look at our history for a minute. Bible, what does the Bible say? We'll come back to that. History, church history. We started off up to 300 AD, persecuted minority. Okay, we all understand the book of Acts, persecuted for proclaiming Jesus as Lord instead of Caesar, blah, 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 blah. 312 AD, 381 AD, we're not persecuted anymore after 312 AD. Then Constantine is the emperor, and he makes Christianity legal. This is a bonus for Christians, right? You can now proclaim the gospel and you won't get put in jail. That's really good. Theodius, whatever, makes Christianity the national religion of Rome. Okay? This is even better for Christians, right? Because now the government's funding the church. How good is that? Okay, what happens about now? What happens to the church about here? Where we used to be pure saints and disciples, now, if you want to be rich and famous and hobnob with the bigwigs of society, you've got to be a Christian church minister. Because they're the ones that hang out with the prime minister, right? The emperor, his buddies are church leaders. If you want to be a church leader, if you want to hang out in political influence, you've got to be a church leader. So you've got people rising to power in the church through politics, okay? The government's pumping money into the church. If you want to be rich, you go hang out in the church because that's where the money is, right? So suddenly, the pure church is now completely diluted with all sorts of other stuff. What else is happening right now? It's the official religion of the country. Every time Rome invades a country, you convert or you die, right? All throughout the Roman Empire, okay? Now our religion is now Christianity. So now you must follow Christ or you will be executed, right? Okay, so Easter, where did Easter come from? Spring festival, right? Whatever. Let's just rename it, say it's a celebration of the resurrection, but really, we're just doing the same things we used to do in our pagan festival. It's a pagan festival, and we converted it to a Christian name so the Romans wouldn't kill us. Okay, this is a lot of the Christian. Okay, so this is what happens when Christians is in government. This is not good, right? Okay, so what happens after that? Rome was invaded and destroyed. Okay, about 100 years after making Christianity the official religion and embracing Christianity, suddenly the Roman Empire is dead, invaded by others. About then, some of the thinkers in Rome said, what's up with the Christian God? When we followed Zeus and all those Apollos and all those other gods, right, we were strong. When we followed Christianity, we got invaded and defeated. Something's up, right? Who wants to follow Christianity? There's a bit of that going on. Then we have the Dark Ages, okay, where the church ruled, and if you disagree with the church, you got executed and put in jail and stuff like that. We have Christopher Columbus discovering America, right? And the whole thing I talked to you about, him escaping. Martin Luther comes up and says, I disagree with the church. He's chased from country to country because he disagrees with the official church. Okay, and this is where this thing started to happen because some countries, the governments were sick of Catholic Church pushing them around. So they said, we like this guy. We're going to change the law of our country so it's okay to be a Lutheran church or a Catholic church. By doing that, they push church religion out of government. Now the church can't tell us what to do. We make our own laws. Okay? By doing that, they allowed the Lutherans to worship without being arrested. Okay? And the church had less power in government. And so that meant that freedom of religion came back. Okay? But that meant at the cost of, now the government has no one telling them what to do. No accountability. They can make whatever rules they like. And this is where we got our whole utilitarianism and stuff like that came from, this period of history. Okay, it all comes in here, democracy and stuff like that. And then the next step, of course, is continuing on with the draining away of Christianity out of government and out of society, in Western society and stuff like that. So that's the history. The important part for us is when the church was ruling the country, it was bad, so if you disagree. Okay, they're just the same. Now we all say we wouldn't do the same, right? Because we were so smarter. So if we ran the country, if we were running the country, Christian, if it's a Christian country, the government is a Christian country. Augustine wrote a book, The City of God and the City of Earth. And he talked about how, okay, the kingdom of God is like this, it's the whole thing, right? The city of God is all of God's people, God's kingdom, the saints, so that's the city of God. The city of earth is earthly political communities. Okay? The ideal situation is where the city of God and the city of earth intersect. Right? When you've got Christians in government, that's the ideal situation. Now, here's the problem. If you've got two countries with Christian governments, right? You've got Scott Morrison in Australia, and we've got Christian guy running the government in let's say Argentina. There's a revival there, and there's a Christian in government now. And World Cup soccer match. Who is God going to favour? Okay, whose side is God be on in the World Cup soccer when there's two Christian countries playing against each other?
The best team.
Okay, right? God is not interested and not necessarily involved in conflict between the city of Earth. Okay, if you've got the Romans being defeated by the barbarians in war, does that mean God is weak? Not necessarily. Does it mean God has abandoned the country? Well, maybe, maybe not. You can't make a tight link.
No.
Okay? Sometimes there might be, and sometimes there might not be a link. Okay? So you can't be 100%. Did God move on behalf of freedom to suppress the Nazi regime? Was it a work of God to defeat them, or was it just human conflict and human... What do you think? I think there's testimonies of God moving on behalf of freedom, right? There's stories you can hear of people saying how it was a miraculous move of God. Even, for example, Germany was ready to invade England, right? Just waiting for a fine day. And then they were coming. And then they accidentally dropped the bomb on London. Like by accident, Germans dropped bombs on London instead of on military targets, on civilian targets. They were just like lost, and they accidentally bombed the wrong place, right? Then the British said, that's not okay. We'll send a bomber back, we'll drop bombs on Berlin. And they did, right? Adolf Hitler gets upset. He changes his whole plan. Let's bomb London till it's flat. So he completely abandons his military targets to flatten London. Okay, that gives England a year to rebuild its military forces, and then the fine weather comes and Germany can't invade anymore. Okay, completely a move of God. Otherwise, it was game over. Right? It's things like that. You can see the hand of God in situations like that. Right? So yes and no, but it's not 100%. Okay, we have to understand that. It's the same in our personal life. Sometimes something good happens and it's a powerful miracle from God. God provided, right? And we thank God for it. Other times it's just random stuff. Okay, it's just people doing stuff and God's there. God's like, you got to be careful about over-spiritualizing. Everything's the hand of God, or nothing's the hand of God. Both things we're off. Okay, we're back to government. We're a Christian in government. Scott Morrison's in government. What laws should he make? He in his free hand, he's now been given total authoritarian state of emergency. He's got complete control of the country. He can make whatever laws he likes. He's consulting with the church. What laws shall we make to restore the blessing of God to Australia?
The value of life.
Why? So,
Because we're all created in his image.
okay. And if I disagree with you, what happens to me? Because I'm not a Christian. Okay? Let's say there's been a revival, 80% of Australia are now Christians. They voted in a Christian government. Okay? The value of life means what? Protect the unborn, right?
Yeah, protect the unborn, absolutely.
Protect the unborn, the elderly.
Yeah.
So euthanasia's off the list.
Yeah.
Okay? Obviously, abortion's off the list. If I disagree with you, what happens to me? If I have an underground abortion clinic, right? What happens? What happens to me? Do I go to jail? Do I go to jail?
Yeah.
Is that religious persecution? Is that religious persecution?
I mean, if they have an underground abortion clinic, yeah.
I'm breaking the law, but it's a religious law, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What about? So we're going to protect the. What about sexual immorality? Is that as bad as? What about? So let's say should adultery be illegal as well? Because that's bad, right?
Yeah.
Is that illegal too?
I think it should be illegal.
Illegal? Christian country now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens to me if I'm not a Christian? If I'm a polygamist? Okay.
You're in trouble.
I'm in trouble. I'll go to jail again, right? Like, right? Christian country. What about tithing? Tithing, right? command of God?
Okay, this thing like God gave us the freedom to choose
Yes?
which side we want to go to. So God has not forced. God gave you
Yes,
freedom
yes.
to choose.
But I'm the government now. Yes, fair me.
But who are we to judge? Like, we
Yeah,
don't have the right.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay, right. Yes.
The population will be.
Yes. So if I am the Christian government, what law should I make? I'm a Christian now, running the country. What laws should I make if I'm a Christian?
There shouldn't be any laws if, like, we're living in a Christian.
Wait. So there should be no laws.
No law. Everybody, Philly's in charge. Philly for president. Philly for president.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if we are living in a Christian state, and like we are truly Christians, there shouldn't be
100% Christian. There's no non-Christians in the country.
Okay,
Is that what you're saying?
yeah.
So we don't need rules.
I'm not saying we don't need rules, but like, wouldn't it be what? Yeah, like we've got the Bible. We don't need like a set of laws. We can just follow what's in Scripture. Like,
Okay, and what happens if someone don't? What happens if someone comes on holiday from the USA, that pagan country with no one obeying God, and comes into our perfect country and steals something? Do we have a law against it?
Yes, the Ten Commandments says do not steal.
Yeah, then what's the
yeah,
point?
but we don't have the
We don't
thing,
have
like we don't have punishment for it. We're not the ones to spell that out.
So it's illegal, but we're not going to do anything about it. Oh, it's illegal, yeah. Do not murder. Oh, you accidentally killed someone, sorry. I'm very sorry about that. These Americans, don't anyone come over from America, they're bad.
You could ban them if it pleases.
We'll send them out again. Yeah?
That's not showing racial
Okay.
bad.
That's right. Except Caroline's got an answer for us.
Okay, I think we should separate the laws from maybe there are universal laws like do not kill, do not steal, which affects us whether you are a Christian or not.
Universal laws.
Yeah, so I think we should uphold those laws.
Where do we get the universal laws from? How do we find them out? Where don't we get them from?
Because anyway, do not kill, whether you are a Christian or not, killing is bad for everyone. So I don't think anyone can say killing is good. So there are those laws which lies on both sides. I don't know.
Yeah, wow.
Sometimes
Seems like
freedom,
self-defense.
still keep the freedom into a point that you're not harming someone by your action.
Yeah?
That comes as an illegal thing if you're really hurting another human being by through your action, but still have a freedom to make choice about your own life. So that's how it's.
So do what you like privately, but don't hurt someone else.
Yeah,
Or
I mean, his
publicly-
choices are.
Be like what? So everything you can do privately, but publicly if it affects somebody else, you don't do it.
No, it's not like that. I'm probably thinking like if it's something about life, like if you're killing, without a consent, like you're killing someone,
Yeah.
you're doing some harmful things to.
So there's universal laws is what you're saying.
Yeah.
That would apply to everybody regardless of religion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, okay?
Yeah.
How do you find those out?
We
Where do you find out those universal laws are?
just the way we say God, God has put in us a conscience. So I think from that.
In the Bible?
Obviously, this is the whole point.
Laws do come from Bible, like, do not kill, do not steal.
Okay, this is the whole problem, right?
Yeah.
This is the whole problem. We don't have a frame of reference to tell us what the universal, obviously, right? Because we don't want to enforce Christianity on other people, we can't make law about tithing,
Yeah.
right? We can't make, even Christians don't want to be told they have to tithe, right? Okay? And we can't make law about adultery,
Yeah.
okay? Because people that aren't Christians, that's normal behaviour.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily think that it's wrong. So this doesn't fit into the universal category.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, and then we run into trouble with this whole unborn thing. For some people, it's in the universal category, and some people think it's okay. Okay? This is where our government is at right now, right? We argue about things and we try and work out what can go in the universal law box.
Yeah.
Okay? And we don't really have any common place to get that, it seems, that which is acceptable to everybody. So it's basically a consensus model. What does the majority of people think is okay? If you can get, I would say, what's the percentage? When we did the referendum on gender, what was the percentage we needed to change the law? 50%? It was 50%, right? Was it 50% or 60% or something like that?
50% seems quite low.
50% seems quite low, right?
60, 70.
Half the time.
60 something percent. There's a percentage which someone's made up, right? Because remember, if it's less than more than 50%, you've got over half the people are in support of it, right? And democracy is democracy. 50% gets you in, right? And then you've got the support of 50% of the people. You can do whatever laws you like. That's how democracy works. Because more people are for you than against you, right? That's how it works. So now I'm a Christian leader. What laws am I going to make? How am I going to make my laws? Because I know that this is going to bring God's blessing on the country, right? Okay? Without that, God's going to undermine the value of our society. There's so many things that, as a Christian, I can look at the destruction of our society and think it's because we've abandoned God's laws.
Yeah.
How am I going to bring them back? How am I going to bring them back? Okay, here's a great video. Let's look at this video. We talked about democracy. Talked about blah, blah. Here's a great video. This is Obama talking about church and state. And he talks about, it's a 10-minute video, we haven't got time to watch it. He talks about, all through American history, the great leaders have come from Christian backgrounds, but when they speak a little bit of religious language, but they make sure that what they're presenting appeals to everybody. So they don't just say, the Bible says, okay, even though they're convinced the Bible says, they come at it with a, don't you realise, and they talk about universal good, they talk about something that's accessible to people that aren't Christians. And the requirement to bring about change in society, right, is not to say the Bible says. In politics, especially when you're a minority, the way you want to influence the country is by speaking in a language that other people outside of your faith can understand. Yeah. Okay? Just the same as when you're trying to evangelize someone and win them to Christ, you've got to speak their language and something to find agreement with them. They understand, they agree with you, okay? Same thing, you have to approach it as speaking, convincing them on their terms that what you're saying is the right way. Okay? So if you were able to find statistics, right, that show that that increase, for example, whenever how you're dealing with this is affecting the prosperity of your country, even though you can't explain the specific link, there's a statistical link that shows that when you ban the protection of the unborn, our GDP went down by 10%, and we've always struggled. Something like that. That's an argument that's going to hold more weight than God says. Okay, because the people that are outside of your God says framework don't listen to you. So, and this is, as Christians, we understand that living according to God's ways will bring blessing. We understand that, but especially because we're a minority, we understand following Christ is voluntary. Okay, and we have to speak to people in a language that they'll understand. The government won't, if you write a letter to the Prime Minister or something to your MP and say the Bible says blah, 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 he's not going to read past, right? But if you talk to him about, you have to talk about universal values accessible to everyone, and a language that he can understand and relate to, that he can convince others that your argument makes sound sense, okay? And the problem with this is that it's a shifting target as cultures change and societies change. The whole, probably the best example of social transformation is the anti-smoking lobby, right? Smoking was the in thing for generations until scientific evidence said it makes you sick, right? And even then, for a long time, it was an ongoing battle. And over time, it was scientific evidence, statistics and stuff that swung the whole thing around, and suddenly, so smoking's the out instead of the in. Okay, and that is and government places will say no smoking, right? And that's just based on scientific research, statistics, stuff like that's how society mind has been changed. And we'll have churches and Christians will have to use the same logic, the same technique to bring about change in society as well. Okay, we've got 5 minutes left. What does the Bible say about church and state? We should have looked at that, because that's pretty important. What does the Bible say about the relationship between religion and politics in the Old Testament? We've got 1 minute. Old Testament. How was politics and religion linked in the Old Testament?
think when we look at the Old Testament, the children of Israel was their religion was so much into their the political because the kings were meant to follow the prophets and the word of God in living.
Yes?
Yeah, so it was
Yeah, very closely linked.
Yeah.
So we've got Moses, religious leader, government, same thing, no separation at all, right? Moses is the leader. Okay? Then we've just jumped to David. David's the political leader. Where's the religion? Where does the religion live?
Prophets were then and
Prophets.
We've got the priests.
Yeah.
Okay.
The prophets.
And the temple. What's their relationship? Who tells who what to do?
The prophets have the word from God that they share with the kings.
They were like advising the
Yeah, the advisors.
Yeah. Prophets tell the king when he's being naughty.
Yeah.
Okay. And what does the king do to the prophet?
Sometimes he kills them.
Puts them in jail and kills them if he doesn't like them. That's right. He either repents or he puts them in jail. The prophets talk to the people, okay, reminding them of the things of God. The priests, these were sort of like, at the end of the day, the king was in charge.
Yeah.
But for the king to go against the priest was really big deal. Most of the time, the priest was an advisor to the king, okay, but and sort of separate. So your religion was the priest, but the king was expected to sponsor and support and promote. Okay, and conflict between those was the beginning of the end. And the prophets were basically reminding the king what they had to do right. Okay. Now, New Testament.
to separate.
It was separate because Jesus said, give what owed to God and give what is owed to King.
Yeah, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God what is God's. What else? New Testament subject. New Testament passage on government. Anything else? Romans 12, submit to the authorities over you. They keep watch over you. No, that's elders keep watch over you as those who give account. Submit to the leaders. They've been appointed. Every authority has been appointed by God. Okay, so you should do. They are God's representative to maintain order and peace. Right? That's the thing. They do not carry the sword for nothing. They've been given the sword to punish evildoers and promote good. So this.
Like a hierarchy, so like people, king, and then God. And
So in that mindset, God is here, and there's government, yeah, and then there's people. That's right. And the government is supposed to enforce God's rule of maintaining peace and order. Okay, but not necessarily enforce the religion. The religion is something that the people do. Okay, that's because remember they were a minority all that time. Okay, that's pretty much it. We're just going to watch a video because this is one video which you can't not watch. After this whole conversation, just when you think you figured it out, I haven't got sound. Oh, we can't watch it.
What?
Okay, I've got a video on here which you should all watch, but I haven't turned the sound on.
Post it in the Facebook.
It's on the notes,
It's on the notes.
and they're all the links are in the notes. This one here.
Yeah.
David Cameron, Prime Minister of England in 2015, saying Happy Easter, and he happens to say England is a Christian country. And then he talks about England being a Christian country, which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
So you might want to watch that video to find out what his definition of a Christian country is and how that plays out. So, and then I'll give you some more questions. But okay, that's it. We're done. 10 o'clock on the dot. 2-hour lecture. Covered. Any questions? Yes, too bad. Well, it's officially a 2-hour lecture if we watched all the videos and took it slow.
Yeah.
Because last year I had 2 hours for ethics, so I could really do it good. So what's our, as Christians, what's our involvement in politics as individual Christians? What's our involvement in politics as individual Christians? What's our responsibility as Christians? Submit to the authorities. What sort of government do we live in? What sort of political system? Democracy. What does the government want us to do? They want us to vote. They want us to talk. They want us to let them know what's going on. They want us to be actively involved.
Yeah.
They respond to what the people are saying. It's our responsibility of Christians to make our voice known, to articulate the things that we're concerned about. Okay? So link up with some sort of organisation that is having a political voice, and hopefully a balanced one that's not weird. Right? Because there's some that are off, right? And they're just like, you think like, oh, how awkward, that's embarrassing. But some of them are sound. Like there's that guy, what's his name? Martin someone?
Martin Isles.
Martin Isles. He has a lot of sensible things to say, and he's got a good voice in government. So linking in with him, getting his perspective on what's happening in politics, helpful. There's an organisation called Citizen Go. Have you heard of Citizen Go?
No.
I ended up on their email list, I don't know how, but they do a lot of petitions to the United Nations and stuff like that about more worldwide things. Their last one, I remember there was some kid in England that they were going to turn off life support, and the parents couldn't afford to take them to Italy, or wanted to take them to Italy where there's a surgeon was going to operate. And England said, no, we're just going to turn off life support. And these guys did a petition, got millions of signatures around the world, and so they ended up letting the child be taken on a plane to Italy where the guy would actually operate to help in some of that. So all sorts of, they do a lot of stuff on unborn, a lot of stuff on religious freedom and that sort of stuff. So that's interesting as well. Yeah.
So, because as Christians, there are so many things maybe you might not agree with what the political arena is.
Yeah.
So most of the time, maybe we are forced to do a utilitarian approach.
Most of the time, you want to pick your strategy. I reckon choose your battles, right?
Yes.
There's some things that really matter, some things that, and there's some things that most Christians are united on.
Yeah.
Some things like economic stuff, Christians have different opinions, right? Should we have higher taxes or lower taxes? Okay, penalty rates or not? Some of those sorts of things, a lot of Christians have got different ideas. It's probably not saying God said on those things, but as you say, the main things that Christians are concerned about is a united front on. It's good to be consistent and let them still know that people still care about some of those things, right? Yeah, that's a good thing. Okay, let's go. Everyone out. You've got 2 minutes before Sharon takes over.